So here we're going to do 13 and 14. This is from the SAT number 9. 13 says, based on the passage, in which situation would an individual stand the greatest chance of accurately predicting how he or she is perceived? And because this is a paired question, sort of the rule, the protocol that we follow is we're going to start with the answer choices from 14, A, B, C, and D. We're going to go through each of them, looking for any sort of text that could answer this question for 13. And so for here, what the question for 13 is asking is basically, what does the passage say about when we're good at predicting how others perceive us, right? We want the greatest chance of accurately predicting how he or she is perceived. So we want to know, what does the passage say about when we're good at predicting that? Now, we might remember from the passage the two scenarios that they talk about. And if we do remember from the passage, that's good. So we could remember that the passage says that we're not very good at understanding how individuals will perceive us, but we are pretty good at understanding how groups of people. So I may understand how my group of friends think about me, but I may not understand as well what each individual friend in that group will understand about me. So we can do that. If we don't know, if we didn't pick that up from the reading it, we can also still answer this question just by going through the answer choices for 14. And let's go through them anyway, because even if we do understand, it's still going to be useful to go through the questions, the answers for 14, and see if we find the answer for that. So 9 to 13 says, the traits varied from one experiment to another and included qualities like intelligence, sense of humor, consideration, defensiveness, friendliness, and leadership ability. This is not a good answer choice because this is talking about the traits which they measured. This is sort of still in the methodology of the experiment, talking about the traits that the researchers examined. It's not going to tell us the situation that we do good on. All it's saying is this is what we measured, not this is what we found, right? This is what people are good at. So A is not going to be right. B is lines 28 through 33. 28 through 33, that's down here. That says, first, the good news. These experiments suggested that people are pretty good overall at guessing how a group of others would evaluate them on average. The overall correlation in these experiments between predicted impressions and the average actual impression of the group was quite high. So this is the good news here. And what it tells us is right off the bat that people are pretty good overall at guessing how a group of others would evaluate them on average. As long as we understand what this is, we should have no problem answering this question. Right? It says people are pretty good overall at guessing how a group of others, right, not specific individuals, would evaluate them on average. This is a pretty good answer choice, probably our answer choice. Let's keep it for sure. C says 41 through 44. That's down here. Now the bad news, right? Already we should kind of have a sense of what's going on. We just had the good news about what people are good at predicting about. Now we're getting the bad news about what people are not good at predicting about. Probably not going to be our text. Let's keep going. These experiments also assessed how well people could predict the impression of any single individual within a given group. And honestly, even this text here doesn't even give us a conclusion one way or another, right? All it basically tells us is that what these experiments measured, right? They wanted to see how you could predict what you would think, what an individual would think about you. But it doesn't even give us the conclusion for that. So we're not going to choose B for this one. C for this one for sure. So now we have D. D is 68 through 70. So D says you learn over time to hang around people who smile at you and avoid those who spit at you. So this is basically saying this is how you manage people who don't like you, right? You learn over time to hang around people who smile at you and you avoid those who spit at you. But this doesn't really tell us much about what people are good at. It just tells us about the response that people have towards maybe negative impressions that people have of us. So B is definitely going to be our correct answer here. It's the only one that could really work. So C, D, and A are out. B is the only one that could work. So one more time, what does B tell us about the situation that an individual would stand the greatest chance of accurately being perceived? One more time, 28 through 33 says that people are good overall at guessing how a group of others would evaluate them on average. So people will be pretty good in a group situation, understanding how a group feels about them. So A, an intern predicts the impression that her direct supervisor holds of her. So in this case, she's predicting how a direct supervisor would be an individual, not a group, so A should be an answer. B says a manager predicts the collective opinion of employees about her ability. So here she's talking about collective opinion of a group of employees. This is what the passage says people would be good at, so this is a good answer choice. We should definitely keep it. C says an instructor predicts the enthusiasm of his class after talking with two students. Here we have two students, right? Two students is better than an individual. Two students is closer to a group than the other ones. It's probably not as good as B, but what I would do is just keep it, just to go back through one more time to make sure I'm not missing anything, right? A lot of what doing good on the SAT will be, especially when you're getting to the higher score level, is like error management. That's it. You're just managing not making mistakes. So the more diligent you can be, it's almost like being open-minded, being comfortable with ambiguity, not being too hardline. So I would choose both of these and say, let me go back just to double check to make sure I'm not making a premature judgment. D says a biographer predicts the esteem in which he is held by the living subject of his book. Kind of a confusing one, but really it's talking about the living subject, which would be an individual, basically predicting how an individual will perceive him, which we know is not something that the passage says that we're good at, so not D. So this is going to leave us with C and B as our two possible answer choices. So which one more closely tells us about a group of people? And I would say that B is better just because it's more of a group. You just literally have more people, collective opinion of employees, as opposed to two individual students, which is probably a smaller, like almost like a smaller sample size of the classroom. So for that reason, C is not as good an answer choice as B, and that's going to leave us with B as our correct answer.